to rescue a deer from a ferocious bear's mouth, and how it returned the favor. Nothing wasn't an option. This is the story of one man's incredible decision to step in when nature seemed both cruel and relentless, and how a single act of bravery led to a bond that would defy all expectations. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, the kind of day where the golden leaves danced in the breeze and the sunlight cast long shadows across the road. A man was driving down a quiet rural highway, enjoying the peaceful scenery. Everything seemed calm, until he saw something that made his heart stop. There in a clearing by the side of the road, a young moose was being attacked by a black bear. The predator had the moose pinned, its massive claws gripping the terrified animal as it tried to drag it further into the woods. The moose kicked weakly, but it was clear it didn't have the strength to fight back. Its wide, panicked eyes seemed to plead for help. The scene was brutal, raw, and utterly heart-wrenching. At first, the man hesitated. He knew this was the law of the wild, a predator hunting its prey. It was nature's way, but something about the sight of the moose's helpless struggle stirred something deep inside him. He couldn't just drive past. This wasn't about interfering with nature. This was about saving a life that still had a chance. Thinking quickly, he slammed on his horn, the sharp sound cutting through the forest like a scream. The bear froze, startled by the sudden noise. It hesitated for a moment before releasing the moose and retreating into the shadows. The man exhaled a sigh of relief, but the ordeal wasn't over yet. The moose collapsed onto the ground, trembling and bleeding from its wounds. It was alive, but barely. The man pulled over and approached it cautiously. The young animal was too stunned to react, its chest heaving as it tried to catch its breath. Up close, the damage was even more apparent. Its legs were scraped and bruised, and blood seeped from several deep gashes. Kneeling beside the animal, the man gently patted its head, murmuring soothing words to calm it down. He knew the moose needed immediate care, but there was no way it could move on its own. With a determination that surprised even himself, he made the bold decision to take the animal home. Lifting the injured moose into his vehicle was no easy task. It was heavy, and every movement risked causing it more pain, but he refused to give up. After what felt like an eternity, he managed to get the moose settled in the back, wrapping it in a blanket to keep it warm. As he drove home, he glanced in the rearview mirror, meeting the moose's wide, tear-filled eyes. They seemed to hold a mix of fear and gratitude, as though it understood it was being saved. Once home, the man transformed his living room into a makeshift recovery space. He carefully cleaned the moose's wounds, applying antiseptic to prevent infection. He gave it fresh water and, unsure of what else to offer, warmed up a bottle of milk. To his surprise, the moose drank it eagerly, its trembling beginning to subside. He even let the moose sleep in his bed that night, keeping a watchful eye over it to ensure it was comfortable and safe. The next morning, the man woke to find the moose looking stronger. It was still weak, but it managed to lift its head and take a few wobbly steps around the room. Over the next few days, he continued to care for it as if it were a member of his family. He fed it fresh grass and vegetables, spent hours sitting beside it, and even gave it a name, Echo. As Echo began to recover, its personality started to shine through. It was curious, playful, and surprisingly affectionate. It followed the man around the house like a loyal dog, nuzzling his hand for attention. To help it regain its strength, the man built a small swimming pool in the yard where Echo could wade and cool off. They went on walks together, exploring the fields and forests nearby. 6 months passed, and during that time, Echo grew into a strong and healthy young moose. Its wounds had long healed, and it had become an inseparable part of the man's life. But deep down, the man knew this arrangement couldn't last forever. Echo was a wild animal, and it belonged in the wild. One crisp morning, the man made the difficult decision to release Echo back into the forest. With a heavy heart, he led the moose to a lush, quiet area filled with tall grass and towering trees. He knelt beside it one last time, stroking its soft fur and whispering a tearful goodbye. Echo seemed to understand. It nuzzled his shoulder gently before turning and walking into the trees, disappearing from sight. Life returned to normal, but the man often thought about Echo. He wondered if the moose was thriving, if it remembered the care it had received. The house felt quieter without its mischievous antics, and though he knew he'd done the right thing, he couldn't help but miss his unusual companion. Then, 5 years later, something incredible happened. One morning, as the man sipped his coffee by the window, he heard a strange noise outside. Setting down his cup, he went to investigate. What he saw left him speechless. Standing in the yard was a massive, muscular elk with enormous antlers. It took him a moment to recognize the animal, but when he met its familiar gaze, his heart swelled with emotion. It was Echo. The once young moose had grown into a magnificent adult, its presence both powerful and serene. For a moment, the man hesitated, unsure of what to do. But Echo made the first move, bowing its head slightly as if to say, "I remember you." The man smiled, stepping closer and speaking softly. Echo didn't back away. Instead, it nudged his shoulder affectionately, just like it had years ago. Echo stayed for a while, wandering around the yard and even playing with the man's dog. It was as if no time had passed, their bond as strong as ever. Before leaving, Echo did something extraordinary. It shed its antlers, leaving them in the yard as a parting gift. The man was overwhelmed. He took the antlers inside and hung them proudly on his wall, a symbol of their incredible journey and the friendship that had stood the test of time. This story isn't just about saving an animal. It's about the power of compassion, bravery, and the connections we share with the natural world. It's a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can create ripples that change lives in ways we can't imagine. If this story moved you, consider how you can bring more kindness into the world. Support wildlife rescue organizations, volunteer for conservation efforts, or simply share stories like this to inspire others. Together, we can create a world where humans and animals coexist in harmony. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to share heartwarming tales of love, courage, and connection. Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, kindness has the power to change lives, one act at a time.